Good evening. This is the Songs by DL Facebook page and YouTube page. And normally I upload one song a week, but I wanted to do something a little different. I feel like it's related and kind of get my songs out there and also the stories of the songs. And I wanted to talk a little bit about a musical I wrote about 10 or 12 years ago. I called it Songs from the Shadows, a Gothic musical, and it was based on the old TV show Dark Shadows. And I wanted to say a little bit about it, the songs itself, and also kind of what happened with it, because there was a little bit of a saga or a little bit of drama with it. And, you know, that was fine, but I just wanted to talk about it. So I feel like it's related to my songs that I've written over the years. And it's was one of the things I've written that was the most coherent and involved. The songs are just songs, but I mean they were all kind of followed a theme and there was a narrative, and they were all based on the old TV show Dark Shadows. So I wanted to say a little bit about that, maybe just for a few minutes. And if you're interested in the show, maybe if you ever have heard any of these songs, maybe you have. Some of quite a few of them are on the internet, one place or the other. I wanted to say a little bit about the overall musical, most of which is not heard. Several of the songs, you know, I do play and are out there, and I notice on the internet do get played. But I wrote the first. It all started, I guess, in 2009. I was playing in a little group called the Silverbird Duo, and I've always written songs, and you know, I'm not that young, so maybe I was in my mid-40s, and I'm not in my mid-40s anymore, let's say. But I've always written songs. Well, we had a new Netflix account, and at that time it was the Red Envelopes, and I started watching Dark Shadows. Now, this was a show I'd loved when I was a kid, but I hadn't really seen it in years, maybe a rerun or two. And it's one of those shows you've kind of got to binge watch, I guess. It's, you know, it was on every day back in from 1966 to 1971. It was a 30-minute soap opera every day on ABC at 4 o'clock. So you know, that's a lot of shows, 5 days a week for 5 years. So, and to watch, you know how soap operas are. They go really slow, but they take all kinds of twists and turns. So to really get into it, you kind of need to watch a lot of it. But once you get into it, you're hooked. You know, it's that good. So, and it doesn't take too long. I'm not trying to scare you off. You should watch it. But you watch a couple shows and you start to get the characters and the plot. You'll like it even today. But I got a, you know, we had this Netflix account, and I started watching these old episodes of Dark Shadows I hadn't seen in years. And when I was a kid, I was one of those kids that came home and watched that show all the time. And I was crazy about baseball at the time. And I used to be torn. Should I go play baseball at the, you know, Sandlot or watch Dark Shadows? And a lot of times I'd go home and watch Dark Shadows and go play baseball afterwards. But I do remember this one character named Daphne Harridge, and she was played by Kate Jackson. You know, beautiful woman, then and still now, I'm sure. But she always struck me, and I was just a kid. You know, I think I was like 11 or something, so I didn't really understand. But I didn't get this much. This is a, you know, beautiful, you know, woman, and she was very haunting. She played a ghost. Well, anyway, you know, and I ended up writing a song. I just sat there and I kind of watched all these shows. I must have watched a year's worth of the show in a couple weeks, you know, with these Red Envelopes. And I wrote this song called Daphne, and that, you know, that ended up being, you know, one of the songs that I do play quite a bit when I get a chance to play my own songs. And, you know, Kate Jackson heard it and she liked it. She called me and even said she liked it, which was a great day. You know, I still remember that. And you know, I'm going to do Daphne a little later in the schedule for Songs by DL, and I want to say a little bit more about that song and the character at that time, and not go too much down that deep road. But as I watched more of the show, I ended up kind of taking Daphne, which was this one song that I did, and everyone seemed to like it. And I ended up writing a whole series of songs. I wrote a song based on the character named Maggie Evans, called Pretty Maggie of Maine. And then and then I just kept writing more. And pretty soon I had I also kind of added sort of musical themes. I used that as my model, Quadrophenia, which had, there was like a Roger Daltrey theme and a Pete Townsend theme. So I kind of had a Angelique theme and a Daphne theme and a Victoria theme, or I thought I did. I don't know how successful it was. But I ended up kind of writing what I've envisioned as a theatrical work, a concept, a work that was for theater. And I later even wrote a script for it, which I have. But I envisioned it as kind of a rock opera, but not one with not rock music, but kind of like Tommy or Jesus Christ Superstar, something that people could sing in costume in the theater. I was really proud of some of the songs on that, and I spent a lot of time on the lyrics and watching the show and trying to capture the feeling of the show, which was very kind of quiet and spooky. That show never had guts or, did have some, good old-fashioned horror movie screaming, sometimes, but it was often very quiet show, spooky, very gothic and atmospheric, and in its own way for a TV show, kind of literary quite a bit. I think Dan Curtis, he was the mastermind of that show. Anyway, I did a CD. That was back when CDs were still around, and I was kind of excited about it, and I had a really kind of nice CD printed up, and there were starting to be articles and reviews about the CD, and then one day I got a email through Facebook from, I won't say his name, but he was very polite, so I'm not really cutting the guy down, but he, if you looked him up, he's someone in TV that is involved in public relations and television. And at that time, they were just getting ready to come out with the Dark Shadows movie, the horrible, insulting Dark Shadows movie with Johnny Depp that was done by Tim Burton. Anyway, it was almost like it's kind of a cease and desist, you can't play these songs. I don't know if how he phrased it, but basically told me, that you don't have a right to, these, and you can't market it. And then the CD was pulled off the internet. I even talked to a lawyer and tried to, see what my options were, because I felt like the songs were good enough to be on the internet. I don't know about my performance. I thought my performance of them was fine, but the songs themselves I thought were worth getting out there. But the platforms that the CD was on, they all kind of responded to this, television. The guy. He represented the Dan Curtis Corporation. Dan Curtis is dead, by the way, by now. So at this time, so it is kind of what it is. And then I kind of tried to redo it with as a tribute, and I had another cover put on, but whereas I had a really neat cover, and I don't know what I think about that. I guess I could be all mad about it. I certainly never meant to infringe on anybody's rights. I wasn't trying to scarf on to the fame and the riches of the Dark Shadows franchise or anything. I was just I don't know if you want to call it fan fiction or something, but that was, I often write songs based on a theme, or I've written other songs about movies or characters and things. And I guess that was one I did. And after that, I don't know. It's still out there, but that's kind of what happened with that. And there were some articles about it in the local paper, and it was I kind of written about it, not just little blurbs about it in some publications that cover new musicals and things like that. And So, but that's what happened to Songs from the Shadows, Dark Shadows, and it's still around in that second form. And the packaging and the clarity of what it is was, sort of never really the same. And, but I was proud of it. I always called it it was meant to be a musical. I always envisioned it as a musical, like a rock opera, or although there are a couple in there that I think there were several in there that could be rock, but I envisioned it as kind of quiet, theatrical, adult theater. I don't mean adult in a risque way, but kind of adult, sort of serious theater, gothic, spooky. And I just did everything with a guitar or piano, a little bit of overdubbing here and there, but mostly it was just me and my voice singing everything, even though a lot of the songs were different characters, and I guess if I ever in the theater, maybe you could add some, definitely some instruments and things, but hopefully it would never lose that kind of spooky, adult, romantic and spooky, which, in the early 70s, there were movies that were romantic and spooky. They weren't gory, though there were a lot of good horror movies at that time, in my opinion. That was a great age of Hollywood, like right between Hello, Dolly and Star Wars. They always say those are the Hello, Dolly is kind of the end of the studio system. Star Wars is the beginning of blockbusters, and then you had that late 60s and early 70s period where there was a freedom, I think, in Hollywood, and they made some great horror movies, and some of them were kind of romantic and spooky. They weren't gory. I mean, they made some of those too, but those are kind of hard to find movies today, I think, that aren't just a lot of startle effects and things. And I guess that's what I always envisioned for it, and then that happened with the lawyers from the Dark Shadows people, and I'm just, peon compared to them, and I certainly also respect the show. I wasn't trying to horn in. I had the soundtrack of the show Dark Shadows. Roger Corbett. It's one of the great that theme song that is so, it's just an iconic theme song. It's awesome, and even just the like that little music box that would play. It was kind of hypnotic little music box tune that they had, and some of the, the theme music you'd hear in the Blue Whale. The music of that was really good, and I certainly would never want to confuse the market or something and try to present what I was doing as part of the actual franchise of Dark Shadows. I guess that was the concern, and I sort of understand that, but I'm still proud of those songs, and I still consider them my songs, and of course they're what I wrote and from my source of inspiration, which in this case was the show. So, but I'm a big fan of the show, and I've had the opportunity to meet a few of the people, and my favorite character was Kate Jackson's Daphne, but also Alexander Moltke, who's Alexander Isles today. Who does some really fine documentaries, and there's just a lot of those actors now. I think some of them. It's kind of like all those shows back then. I think they had a lot of great actors, and a lot of them probably would have liked to have done other things. And then when that show was over, they said, "Well, we can't. We'd love to hire you. It'd be great, but the minute everybody sees you, they think, hey, you're that witch Angelique, or you're the vampire Barnabas Collins." Kate Jackson did go on to be in Charlie's Angels, but a lot of them were typecast. That's kind of like Herman Munster, he did like Ibsen, and the poor guy. The minute everybody saw him, it was like, hey, you're Herman Munster. It's kind of hard to go play King Lear or something when everybody sees you and thinks you're Herman Munster. So I think that typecasting happened to a lot of those really famous shows, including Dark Shadows. But I wasn't trying to horn in on the or confuse people as sort of representing the show in any way, and I kind of want to say that. And But I'm still proud of the songs, and I'm going to be doing more of the songs from the Dark Shadows show that I wrote. And and they're kind of vague. I mean, I don't, the names once in a while appear. Collinsport's in a few, or there's a Carolyn, there's a Victoria, but it's not like a lot of them are just kind of elusive. They're not really a lot of specific details. So I sort of feel like I can perform those songs as kind of standalone songs. And Daphne's the one I do play. Almost any time I get a chance to play my original songs, I do play Daphne, and depending on the audience, but almost always there are people that remember the show and the character and the actress, Kay Jackson. Well, thank you. I just kind of wanted to share that as part of the Songs by DL uploads, and I wish you all the best. If you get a chance to watch the show, maybe over the summer or something. Now you can, the way it is now, you can, boom, 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 watch several episodes in a couple hours. And if you do that and give them, you'll be hooked. Trust me. All right. Thank you. Good night.